A single kiss changed everything, and it wasn't supposed to mean anything at all. Lena Carter made one reckless choice in a crowded bar, and the man on the receiving end didn't laugh it off like he should have. Adrian Volkov saw something in that moment she didn't even know she was offering. Now, what started as a dare has become something neither of them can walk away from. A connection built on danger, honesty, and the kind of intensity that rewrites lives. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The bar smelled like spilled beer and bad decisions. Lena should have known better. She was 26, not some college kid looking to prove something. But here she was anyway, pressed between her two best friends at a corner table, nursing a gin and tonic she didn't really want while Sarah and Becca egged her on like they were still 19. "I'm not doing it," Lena said flatly. "Come on." Sarah leaned in, her eyes bright with alcohol and mischief. "It's just a dare. You used to be fun." "I'm still fun. I'm just not stupid." "Kissing a guy at a bar isn't stupid," Becca chimed in. "It's spontaneous. It's exciting. When's the last time you did something exciting, Lena?" Lena opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. The truth was, she couldn't remember. Her life had become a carefully managed routine. Work at the marketing firm, yoga on Wednesdays, weekend brunches with the same people talking about the same things. Safe. Predictable. Boring as hell if she was being honest. "See?" Sarah grinned. "You can't even answer." "Fine," Lena said, already regretting it. "Who?" Both of them turned, scanning the crowd like hunters selecting prey. The bar was packed. Friday night in the city always was. Young professionals loosening ties and forgetting spreadsheets, groups of friends celebrating nothing in particular, couples leaning too close in dark corners. Then Becca's hand shot out, pointing. "Him!" Lena followed her finger and felt her stomach drop. He sat alone at the far end of the bar, and alone was the operative word. Everyone else was clustered in groups, laughing too loud, jostling for the bartender's attention. This man occupied his space like he'd drawn a circle around himself that no one dared cross. Dark hair, darker eyes, a face that wasn't classically handsome but striking in a way that made you look twice. Sharp jaw. Expression that gave away nothing. He wore a black shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms, and he held a glass of something amber with the kind of stillness that suggested he wasn't here to have fun. "Absolutely not," Lena said. "Why not?" Sarah asked. "He's gorgeous. He's terrifying. He's interesting." Becca raised an eyebrow. "Which is exactly what you need. I need to not get murdered in an alley." "Oh, please," Sarah waved a hand. "He's just brooding. Guys like that are all show. Go kiss him. He'll probably blush and buy you a drink." Lena seriously doubted that. Everything about the man screamed control. The way he sat, the way he lifted his glass with precise movements, the way his gaze swept the room at measured intervals, like he was cataloging exits and threats. This wasn't someone who blushed. "Double or nothing," Becca said. "You do it. We cover your tab for a month. And if I don't?" "You admit you've become boring and we stage an intervention." Lena looked at the man again. He was staring at his phone now, thumb scrolling with the mechanical rhythm of someone who wasn't actually reading anything, just occupying his hands. This is stupid, she thought, but her feet were already moving. She crossed the bar in what felt like slow motion, weaving between bodies and conversations, her heartbeat climbing with each step. She had no plan, no script. This was the kind of impulsive nonsense she'd left behind years ago, and yet here she was, walking straight toward a man who looked like he ate impulse for breakfast. She stopped beside him. He didn't look up. "Hi," she said. Nothing. He kept scrolling. "Excuse me?" His thumb paused, then, slowly, too slowly, he lifted his gaze. Up close, his eyes were even more unsettling. Not cold exactly, just assessing. Like he was calculating her weight and risk and deciding whether she was worth the energy to acknowledge. "Can I help you?" His voice matched everything else about him. Low, controlled, with an accent she couldn't quite place. Eastern European, maybe? Russian? "I need to kiss you," Lena said, because apparently her brain had stopped working. One eyebrow lifted. Barely. "You need to. It's a dare." The words tumbled out too fast. "My friends... Look, this is going to sound insane, but they dared me to kiss the most intimidating person in the bar, and you're... well, You're it. So if I could just... She leaned in before she could overthink it. His hand came up. Not aggressive, not a shove. Just there, between them, fingers spread against her collarbone. Not touching, but close enough that she felt the heat of his palm through her shirt. Stop, he said quietly. Lena froze. I'm sorry, that was stupid. I didn't say no. His eyes locked on hers. I said stop. If you're going to do this, do it properly. Her breath caught. Properly? You're rushing because you're nervous. That's not a kiss. That's an accident. He lowered his hand but didn't move away. If you want to kiss me, kiss me. Don't crash into me like you're trying to get it over with. The bar noise faded. Sarah and Becca, the music, the clinking glasses, all of it dissolved into background static. There was only him, watching her with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable but wasn't. It was magnetic. Lena swallowed hard. Then she stepped closer. This time, she moved slowly, deliberately. She watched his eyes, looking for a sign to stop, but he didn't move, didn't blink, just waited. When her lips touched his, the world tilted. It wasn't the kiss itself, though that was unexpected. Soft and firm at the same time, controlled but not cold. What shocked her was the way he responded. No hesitation, no surprise. He kissed her back like he'd been planning it, like this was a move in a game she didn't know she was playing. And then, just as quickly, it was over. She pulled back, her heart hammering against her ribs. He studied her, no smile, no smirk. Just that same unsettling calm, like she'd done something far more significant than she realized. Congratulations, he said softly. You win your dare. Lena's face burned. Right, thanks. What's your name? The question stopped her mid-turn. Lena. Lena. He repeated it like he was testing how it felt. I'm Adrian. Nice to meet you, Adrian. She backed up a step. Sorry for the... Yeah. Don't be. His gaze didn't waver. It was the most interesting thing that's happened to me all week. She didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded and retreated across the bar, her legs shaky, her mind spinning. Sarah and Becca pounced the second she sat down. Oh my God! You actually did it! What did he say? Was he mad? Lena reached for her drink and drained half of it in one go. He was... fine. Fine? Becca's eyes were wide. Lena, you just kissed a man who looks like he could kill someone with his bare hands and he was fine? He was polite. Polite, Sarah repeated, disbelieving. That man does not look polite. Lena risked a glance back. Adrian had returned to his phone, expression unreadable, posture unchanged, like nothing had happened. But she could still feel the pressure of his hand against her collarbone, the way his eyes had held hers. If you're going to do this, do it properly. I need another drink, Lena muttered. She tried to forget about it. She really did. The weekend passed in a blur of errands and Netflix and pretending she wasn't replaying that kiss in her head at random intervals. By Monday, she'd almost convinced herself it didn't matter. Just a weird, impulsive moment. Nothing more. Then he showed up at her office. Lena was in the middle of a budget review meeting, PowerPoint slides about Q4 projections, her boss droning on about synergy. When her phone buzzed, she glanced at it under the table. Unknown number. You left before I could buy you a drink. Her heart stopped. Lena. Who is this? Unknown. Adrian. From Friday. Lena. How did you get my number? Unknown. You're not as anonymous as you think. Can we talk? She stared at the screen. This wasn't happening. People didn't just track down strangers from bars. That was stalker behavior. Red flag behavior. Lena. This is creepy. Unknown. I know. I'm downstairs. 5 minutes of your time. That's all I'm asking. Lena's boss was still talking. Something about market penetration. She stood abruptly. Excuse me, she said. I need to bathroom. She didn't wait for a response, just grabbed her phone and headed for the elevator. Her hands shook as she jabbed the lobby button. This is insane. Call security. Block his number. Do not go down there. The elevator doors opened. Adrian stood in the lobby, hands in his pockets. looking completely out of place among the glass and steel and corporate blandness. He spotted her immediately. "Lena, you can't be here." She crossed her arms. "I don't know you. You don't know me. This is—" "I apologize." He stepped closer, and she hated how her pulse jumped. "I didn't mean to scare you. I wanted to see you again, and I didn't have a better way to make that happen. You could have not tracked me down like a creep." "Fair." He didn't look away. "I'm not good at normal. I should have thought this through better." "You think?" A muscle in his jaw ticked. "I'm asking for one conversation. Dinner. Somewhere public. After that, if you want me to disappear, I will." "Why?" Lena demanded. "Why do you care? It was just a stupid dare." "Was it?" The question hung between them. "I don't even know you," Lena said, but her voice came out weaker than she wanted. "Then let me fix that." His eyes held hers. "One dinner. Your choice of place. I'll answer any question you ask." She should have said no. Every rational part of her brain was screaming to say no. "Tomorrow," she heard herself say. 7. Angelo's on 5th. "I'll be there." He turned and walked out before she could change her mind. Lena stood in the lobby, watching him disappear into the city, and wondered what the hell she'd just agreed to. Angelo's was busy, which was good. Public. Safe. Lena arrived 10 minutes early and claimed a table near the window, positioning herself where she could see the door. Adrian walked in at exactly 7. He'd traded the black shirt for a dark gray one, but otherwise looked the same. Controlled, deliberate, slightly dangerous. He spotted her and crossed the restaurant with the kind of focus that made her feel like the only person in the room. "You came," he said, sitting across from her. "You sound surprised." "I gave you 24 hours to talk yourself out of it. Most people would have." "Maybe I'm not most people." A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. "No, you're not." The waiter appeared and they ordered wine for her, whiskey for him, appetizers neither of them would probably eat. Small talk to fill the space while they figured out what this was. When they were alone again, Lena leaned forward. "You said you'd answer questions." "I did." "Fine. What do you do?" "Security consulting." "That's vague." "It's accurate." "Try again," Lena said, "and this time, don't lie." Adrian's expression shifted, something that might have been respect. "I manage risk for people who can't afford mistakes." "What kind of risk?" "The kind that involves money, leverage, and occasionally violence." Lena's stomach tightened. "You're a criminal." "I'm a businessman who operates in gray areas." He lifted his glass. "There's a difference." "Is there? I've never heard anyone who didn't try to hurt me first. I don't traffic people or drugs. I don't prey on the weak." He met her eyes. "But I'm not a good man, Lena. If you're looking for that, you should leave now." She should have. Everything he was saying should have sent her running, but instead she asked, "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know what you're getting into if you decide to see me again." "And if I don't want to get into anything, then we finish dinner and I never contact you again." He set his glass down. "But I don't think that's what you want." "You don't know what I want." "Don't I?" He leaned forward, and the air between them felt suddenly thin. "You kissed me because your friends dared you, but that's not why you said yes to tonight. You're here because something about Friday felt different, felt real, and you haven't been able to stop thinking about it." Lena's face burned. "That's presumptuous." "Is it wrong?" She wanted to say yes, wanted to laugh it off, finish her wine, and walk away from whatever this was. But the truth sat heavy in her chest. "No," she admitted quietly. "It's not wrong." Adrian's gaze softened, just slightly, just enough to show something human beneath the control. "Then stay. Let's see where this goes." "You're dangerous." "Yes." "You just told me you operate in gray areas." "I did." "And you think I should still stay?" "I think," Adrian said carefully, "that you're smart enough to make your own choices. I'm not going to manipulate you or pressure you. I'm just asking you to consider the possibility that something worth having isn't always safe." Lena stared at him. At the sharp lines of his face, the intensity in his eyes, the way he held himself like he was always 1 second away from a decision that could change everything. This was reckless.
Stupid. The exact opposite of the careful, controlled life she'd built, and she wanted it so badly it scared her. "One more dinner," she said. "After tonight. If I still want to see you after that, we'll talk." "Fair enough." The waiter returned with their food and the conversation shifted. Safer topics, surface things. Lena asked about his accent, Moscow, until he was 15. His favorite city, Prague, surprisingly. His worst habit, insomnia. He asked about her work, boring but stable. Her family, distant but well-meaning. Her fears, failure, mostly, and being forgotten. It should have felt like small talk. Instead, it felt like excavation. By the time they left the restaurant, Lena's defenses had cracked in ways she didn't know how to repair. Adrian walked her to the subway entrance. "Thank you for giving me a chance," he said. "Don't thank me yet. I might still run." "You might." He smiled, really smiled, and it transformed his face completely. "But I don't think you will." He was right. She didn't. Chastened. The second dinner turned into a third, then a fourth. Within 2 weeks, Lena had stopped counting. Adrian was nothing like anyone she'd ever dated. He didn't play games or send mixed signals. When he said he'd call, he called. When he made plans, he kept them. There was no ambiguity, no guessing, just clarity that felt almost foreign after years of men who couldn't decide what they wanted. But clarity came with complications. She started noticing things. The way his phone rang at odd hours, and he'd step away to take calls in low, clipped tones. The driver who waited outside restaurants in cars with tinted windows. The fact that he never invited her to his place, always came to hers or met her somewhere neutral. "Where do you live?" she asked one night, curled up on her couch while he sat in the armchair across from her, close, but not touching. He was always careful about that. Never assumed, never pushed. "Downtown," he said. "Why?" "Because I've never seen it." "You want to?" "I want to understand your life." Adrian set down his drink. "My life isn't interesting." "Liar." He studied her for a long moment, then sighed. "It's safer if you don't know everything." "Safer for who?" "For you." Lena sat up. "I'm not a child, Adrian. If being with you is dangerous, I deserve to know how dangerous." "It's not—" He stopped himself. "I handle problems before they become threats. You're not in danger." "Then why won't you let me in?" The silence stretched between them, heavy and uncomfortable. Finally, Adrian stood. "Come on." "Where?" "You want to see my life? I'll show you." His apartment was in a high-rise downtown, the kind of building with a doorman and cameras and security that looked military-grade. They rode the elevator to the 23rd floor in silence. When he unlocked the door, Lena stepped into controlled chaos. The space was huge. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than her car, art on the walls that looked expensive and vaguely threatening. But what caught her attention were the details. The laptop on the dining table surrounded by papers covered in Cyrillic script. The security monitors mounted on one wall, cycling through camera feeds she didn't recognize. The safe in the corner, door slightly ajar, revealing stacks of cash and something that might have been a gun. "This is what you didn't want me to see," Lena said quietly. "Yes." She walked to the window, staring out at the lights below. "What exactly do you do, Adrian? And don't give me the security consulting line." He came to stand beside her, close enough that she felt his presence like heat. "I solve problems for people with resources," he said. "When someone powerful has an issue, a business rival making threats, a partner stealing funds, a situation that needs to disappear quietly, they call me. I assess the risk, identify leverage, and make it go away. How? However it needs to happen. Sometimes it's information, sometimes it's pressure, sometimes it's money." He paused. "Sometimes it's worse." Lena's hands trembled. "Have you killed anyone?" "No." The answer came quick and firm. "I've hurt people, I've ruined people, but I've never taken a life." "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" "I don't know." He turned to face her. "I'm not asking you to approve. I'm just asking you to see me clearly. This is who I am. This is what I do. And if that's too much, if you can't live with it, then we end this now, before it gets harder." Lena looked at him. Really looked. At the tension in his shoulders, the careful way he held himself, the vulnerability hidden beneath all that control. Do you want to end it? She asked. No. Then don't make that choice for me. She stepped closer. I'm not naive, Adrian. I know this is complicated. I know you're not safe. But I also know that when I'm with you, I feel more awake than I have in years. So stop trying to protect me from yourself and let me decide what I can handle. Something shifted in his expression. Something raw. You're sure? I'm terrified, Lena admitted. But I'm sure. Adrian reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his hand cupped her face with a gentleness that contradicted everything else about him. I won't let anything hurt you, he said quietly. I promise you that. I know. He kissed her then, not like that first kiss in the bar, fast and electric. This was different, deliberate, a question and an answer all at once. When they finally pulled apart, Lena was breathless. Stay, Adrian said. Tonight? As long as you want. She should have gone home, should have taken time to think this through, to process everything she'd just learned. But instead, she said, okay. Ian. The weeks that followed felt like falling. Lena learned the rhythms of Adrian's life, the late-night phone calls he took on the balcony, the mornings he left before dawn without explanation, the way he checked exits in every room and positioned himself where he could see the door. She learned that he drank his coffee black, hated mornings, and had a scar on his ribs from a knife fight when he was 17. She learned that he was brilliant and dangerous and surprisingly gentle with her in ways that made her chest ache. And she learned that she was in love with him. It crept up slowly, then all at once. The moment she realized it, they were in her apartment, cooking dinner together. Or rather, Adrian was cooking while Lena sat on the counter, stealing bites and making him laugh. Real laughter, the kind that transformed his whole face. What? He asked, catching her staring. Nothing. She smiled. Just, this is nice. He stepped between her knees, hands bracing on either side of her hips. Nice? Okay, better than nice. Better how? You really need me to spell it out? Maybe. His eyes held hers, searching. I'm not good at reading between lines, Lena. If there's something you want to say it. Her heart hammered. This was it. The moment where she either pulled back or jumped completely. I love you, she said. Adrian went very still. You don't have to say it back, Lena added quickly. I just needed you to know. I love you. I love this. I love who I am when I'm with you. For a long moment, he didn't respond. Then he pulled her against him, burying his face in her neck. I don't deserve you, he said, voice rough. That's not an answer. I know. He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. I love you too. I think I have since you walked up to me in that bar and demanded to kiss me. Lena laughed, relief flooding through her. That's not how it happened. That's exactly how it happened. He kissed her softly. You were terrifying and beautiful and completely out of your mind, and I knew right then that you were going to ruin me. Ruin you? In the best way. They stayed like that, wrapped around each other in her tiny kitchen, while dinner burned on the stove and the city hummed outside the window. For the first time in longer than she could remember, Lena felt completely, perfectly certain. This was real. This was right. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. But certainty never lasts. The call came on a Tuesday. Lena was at work, halfway through a presentation about social media metrics, when her phone lit up with Adrian's name. He never called during the day. Ever. She stepped out of the conference room, heart already racing. Adrian? Are you alone? His voice was tight, controlled, but barely. What's wrong? I need you to listen carefully. Go home. Pack a bag. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Ice flooded her veins. What happened? Someone I did business with 5 years ago just got arrested. He's talking. My name came up. What does that mean? It means the next few weeks are going to be complicated. She heard traffic in the background, movement. I'm handling it, but I need you somewhere safe until it's resolved. I'm not running, Lena said. This isn't a negotiation. You're damn right it's not. Her hands shook. You don't get to love me one day and shut me out the next. If you're in trouble, we deal with it together. Lena. Together, Adrian. That's the deal. You don't protect me by pushing me away. Silence. Then quietly. You're impossible. So are you. Where are you?
On my way to you.
Good. We'll figure this out when you get here. She hung up before he could argue and walked back into the conference room.
I'm sorry, she told her bewildered colleagues. Family emergency. I have to go. She didn't wait for permission, just grabbed her bag and left.
Adrian was waiting outside her building when she arrived, leaning against a black car that definitely wasn't his. He looked exhausted, shadows under his eyes, tension in every line of his body.
You should have left, he said when she reached him. And miss all the fun? Lena unlocked her door. Come on, you look like hell.
Inside, she made coffee while he paced her living room like a caged animal. Talk to me, she said, handing him a mug. He took it, but didn't drink. Viktor Kozlov. I helped him move money through shell companies 6 years ago, back when I was less careful about clients. He got greedy, made mistakes. Now he's facing 20 years and looking for leverage. What kind of leverage? Names, transactions, evidence that could implicate half a dozen people, including me.
Lena's stomach dropped. Could you go to prison? If they build a case, yes. What are you going to do? Adrian set down the mug and finally met her eyes. I'm going to fix it, but it means making choices I didn't want to make. What choices? The kind that change everything. He crossed the room and took her hands, his grip almost painful.
I love you, he said, more than I thought I could love anyone. And I need you to understand something. Everything I'm about to do, I'm doing so we can have a future, a real one, not this half-life where you're always wondering if I'm going to disappear. Adrian, you're scaring me.
Good. You should be scared. This is real, Lena. This is the part where you find out exactly what kind of man I am. His eyes held hers. I'm going to burn every bridge I have. Call in every favor. Make deals with people I swore I'd never deal with. And when it's done, I'm walking away from all of it. The business, the contacts, the life I built. Why? Because you asked me to choose, and I'm choosing you. Lena's throat tightened. You don't have to.
Yes, I do. He pulled her closer. I've spent 10 years building an empire that means nothing. That's given me money and power and absolutely no reason to wake up in the morning. And then you walked into my life and reminded me what it feels like to want something that isn't just survival. Tears blurred her vision. What if it doesn't work? Then at least I tried. He kissed her forehead. But it's going to work. I promise you that. And despite everything, the fear, the uncertainty, the absolute insanity of the situation, Lena believed him. Because Adrian Volkov didn't make promises he couldn't keep. He made them happen, whatever it took. The next 72 hours blurred into a chaos Lena had never experienced. Adrian didn't sleep. She wasn't sure he even ate. He moved through her apartment like a ghost, phone perpetually pressed to his ear, speaking in rapid Russian or clipped English depending on who was on the other end. Sometimes he'd disappear for hours, returning with shadows in his eyes and blood on his knuckles he wouldn't explain. Lena tried to maintain normalcy, went to work, smiled through meetings, pretended her world wasn't tilting sideways. But at night, when Adrian finally collapsed beside her on the couch, she'd feel the tension radiating off him like heat. Talk to me, she said on the third night, running her fingers through his hair while he stared at the ceiling. There's nothing to say yet. Bullshit. You've barely spoken 3 words to me in days. He turned his head to look at her. The exhaustion etched into his face made him look older, harder. Victor's lawyer reached out. They want a meeting. Is that good? It means they're willing to negotiate. He sat up, scrubbing his hands over his face. But negotiations with desperate men are dangerous. Victor has nothing to lose. That makes him unpredictable. So what are you going to do? Give him what he wants. Lena's stomach clenched. Which is? Money. Enough to disappear when he gets out, if he gets out. Adrian stood, pacing to the window. And information. Not about me. About someone bigger. Someone the prosecutors actually care about. You're going to betray someone? I'm going to give them exactly what they would have found anyway. His jaw tightened. The only difference is I'm controlling when and how. She wanted to ask who, wanted details, but the look on his face stopped her. This was the part of his life he'd warned her about, the gray areas where right and wrong blurred into survival. When's the meeting? She asked instead. Tomorrow night. I'm coming with you. Adrian spun around. Absolutely not. You don't get to make that decision.
Lena, these are not good people. Victor is a paranoid psychopath who once broke a man's fingers for looking at him wrong. His lawyer is barely better. You're not walking into that.
Then don't go.
I have to.
No, you don't. She stood, crossing to him. You could disappear. We could both disappear. Leave the city. Start over somewhere.
Running doesn't work. His voice was flat. I've seen people try. It never ends well. The only way out is through.
Through what? Getting yourself killed?
Through making this problem go away permanently. He gripped her shoulders. I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this for 10 years. Trust me. I do trust you. That's not the point. Then what is? The point is, you're shutting me out. Her voice cracked. You say you love me. You say you're doing this for us, but you won't let me be part of it. I'm just supposed to sit here and wait while you risk everything?
Adrian's expression softened, but his grip didn't loosen. I'm not shutting you out. I'm protecting you.
I don't need protection. I need honesty.
For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then Adrian exhaled slowly and pulled her against him.
The meeting is at a warehouse on the docks, he said quietly. Victor chose it because it's isolated. No witnesses. I'm bringing 2 men I trust, but that doesn't mean it's safe. If something goes wrong, if this turns into a fight, I need to know you're somewhere they can't touch you. Lena's hands fisted in his shirt. And if something happens to you?
It won't.
You can't promise that.
No, he admitted, but I can promise I'll do everything in my power to come back to you. That enough? It wasn't. It would never be enough. But she nodded anyway, because what else could she do?
Okay, she whispered.
Adrian kissed the top of her head, and for the first time in days, some of the tension left his body. They stood like that for a while, wrapped in each other, pretending tomorrow wasn't coming.
The warehouse smelled like rust and seawater. Adrian had insisted on dropping Lena at Sarah's apartment before heading to the meeting, and she'd agreed only because arguing would have wasted time he didn't have. Now, sitting on Sarah's couch while her best friend peppered her with questions, Lena felt like she might crawl out of her skin. So let me get this straight, Sarah said slowly. Your boyfriend, who you met 6 weeks ago, is currently meeting with a criminal to negotiate his way out of a federal investigation? That's the simplified version. And you're okay with this? Lena laughed, sharp and bitter. Do I look okay? You look like you're about to throw up. That's accurate.
Sarah sat beside her, taking her hand.
Lena, I love you. You know that. But are you sure about this guy? Because from where I'm sitting, this sounds insane. It is insane. Then why? Because I love him. The words came out raw. I know how it sounds. I know it's too fast and too complicated and probably the stupidest thing I've ever done. But I love him, Sarah. And I think he might actually change his life for me. How do I walk away from that? Sarah squeezed her hand. You don't. You just hold on and hope he comes back. Lena's phone buzzed. She grabbed it so fast she nearly dropped it. Adrian. Meeting starting. I'll call when it's done. Lena. Be careful. Adrian. Always. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then reappeared. Adrian. I love you. Lena's throat tightened. He never said it over text. Ever. Which meant he was scared. Lena. I love you too. Come back to me. The dots vanished. No response. What did he say? Sarah asked. That he loves me. That's good, right? Lena stared at the screen, willing it to light up again. I don't know. The minutes crawled by. Sarah tried to distract her with wine and terrible reality TV, but Lena couldn't focus. Every sound made her jump. Every passing car could have been news. An hour passed, then 2. By the 3rd hour, Lena was pacing. He said he'd call, she muttered. Maybe it's running long. Or maybe something went wrong. Don't think like that. How am I supposed to think? Lena spun to face her. He's meeting with criminals in an abandoned warehouse, Sarah. Things go wrong in situations like that. People get hurt. Her phone rang. She answered before the first ring finished. Adrian? Lena. His voice was rough, tired, but alive. It's done. Relief hit her so hard she had to sit down.
Are you okay? I'm fine. Victor agreed to the terms. His lawyer has the information. It's over.
Just like that? Just like that. She heard movement, car doors. I'm on my way to you. I'm at Sarah's. I know. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up before she could respond. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Well? He's alive. He's coming here. Lena pressed her hands to her face. Oh my God, he's actually okay. See? I told you not to panic.
But when Adrian arrived 23 minutes later, Lena's relief evaporated. He looked like he'd been through a war. His shirt was torn at the shoulder, a bruise blooming along his jaw, dried blood crusted under his nose. He moved stiffly, like his ribs hurt. You said you were fine, Lena said, meeting him at the door. I am fine. You're bleeding. Not my blood. That should have scared her. Maybe it did, but mostly she was just furious. What happened? Adrian glanced at Sarah, who was watching from the couch with wide eyes. Can we talk outside? They stepped into the hallway. The moment the door closed, Lena rounded on him. Tell me. Victor got paranoid, thought I was wearing a wire. Things got physical for a minute, but it's handled. Physical how? He took a swing. I took him down. His guy stepped in, my guy stepped in, everyone calmed down, and we finished the conversation like adults. Adrian touched his jaw, wincing. More or less. You could have been killed. But I wasn't. That's not the point. Then what is the point, Lena? His voice rose, frustration bleeding through the control. You wanted me to handle this. I handled it. You wanted honesty. I'm being honest. What more do you want? I want you to stop acting like your life doesn't matter. The words echoed in the narrow hallway. Adrian stared at her, something shifting behind his eyes. My life matters because you're in it. That's why I did this. That's why I took the risk. And what happens next time? When there's another Victor, another problem, another warehouse meeting that could go wrong? There won't be a next time. You can't know that. Yes, I can. He stepped closer, voice dropping. Because I meant what I said. I'm done, Lena. After this, after I make sure Victor keeps his mouth shut and the investigation goes away, I'm out. No more gray areas, no more midnight calls, no more situations where I come back bleeding. She wanted to believe him, desperately. How? She asked. How do you just walk away from 10 years of this? Carefully, slowly, by paying off the right people and cutting ties with the wrong ones. He touched her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. It won't happen overnight, but it will happen. I promise you that. Lena closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. I'm scared. Me too. Really? Terrified. His voice was barely a whisper. I've never had anything worth protecting before. Now I do. And the idea of losing you because of the choices I made years ago, that scares me more than anything Victor could ever do. She opened her eyes. So we figure it out together. Together, he agreed. They stood there in the hallway, foreheads touching, breathing in sync. And despite everything, the blood, the fear, the uncertainty, Lena felt something settle in her chest. This was real, messy and complicated and absolutely insane, but real. The fallout took weeks. Victor's lawyer delivered the information Adrian had promised, and the prosecutors shifted their focus to bigger fish. Adrian's name stayed buried in sealed testimony that would never see daylight. The investigation moved on without him. But freedom came with a price. Adrian had to sever ties with clients who'd relied on him for years. Some understood, some didn't. The ones who didn't made threats he had to navigate carefully, calling in favors and making deals that kept Lena awake at night, imagining worst-case scenarios. He stopped taking new jobs, started liquidating assets, moved money into legitimate investments that wouldn't raise flags. It was like watching someone dismantle their entire life brick by brick. Do you regret it? Lena asked one night. They were at his apartment. She'd been spending more time there as her lease approached its end. Adrian was at the dining table, laptop open, working through another endless spreadsheet of accounts and transfers. He looked up. Regret what? All of this. Walking away. No. You don't even have to think about it. There's nothing to think about. He closed the laptop and came to sit beside her on the couch. I spent 10 years building something that gave me power but no purpose. Now I have purpose. That's not a trait I regret. Even when it's hard? Especially when it's hard. He pulled her against him. The easy choice would have been to keep going, make money, take risks, pretend I could have both worlds. But I couldn't, not if I wanted to do right by you. Lena traced patterns on his chest. What if I'm not worth it? Don't. His voice was sharp. Don't do that. Do what? Doubt yourself. Doubt this. He tilted her face up. You walked into my life and reminded me what it feels like to want something more than survival. To want a future, not just another day. You think that's not worth fighting for? Her eyes stung. I'm just scared you'll wake up one day and realize you gave up everything for someone ordinary. You're not ordinary. He said it like a fact. You're the woman who kissed a stranger on a dare and then stayed when most people would have run. You're brave and stubborn, and you see the best in people even when they don't deserve it. That's not ordinary, Lena. That's extraordinary. She kissed him then, pouring everything she couldn't say into the contact. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. Move in with me, he said. Lena pulled back slightly. What? Your lease is up next month. Don't renew it. Move in here. Adrian, I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring things out, but I want you here. I want to wake up next to you every morning and come home to you every night. I want this to be our space, not just mine. Her heart hammered. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Lena looked around the apartment. It was still too minimalist, too controlled, but she could see their life here. Her books on his shelves, her coffee mug next to his in the kitchen, plants by the window because he'd never think to get them, but she would. Okay, she said. Adrian's eyes widened. Yeah? Yeah, let's do it. He kissed her again, and this time it felt like sealing a promise. The next few weeks were a blur of packing and painting and arguing about furniture. Adrian had opinions about everything. The couch had to face the door, the bedroom needed blackout curtains, the kitchen required better knives, but he also deferred to her in ways that surprised her. When she wanted color on the walls, he hired painters. When she insisted on a bookshelf that took up half the living room, he assembled it without complaint. This doesn't look like your place anymore, she said one Saturday, standing in the living room surrounded by boxes. Good, Adrian said from the floor, where he was attempting to wrangle a lamp she'd bought. It should look like ours. Sarah and Becca helped move the last of Lena's things, both of them wide-eyed at the apartment. I can't believe you're moving in with him, Becca whispered while Adrian was in the other room. It's been like 2 months. 2.5, Lena corrected. Oh, well then, totally reasonable. I know it's fast. Fast? Sarah shook her head. Lena, this is supersonic. Are you sure you know what you're doing? No, Lena admitted. But I know I want to be here. With him. That's enough. And the whole criminal thing? He's out. Completely out. He's been setting up a legitimate security firm, actual security, the legal kind. It's going to be fine. Sarah and Becca exchanged a look that said they weren't convinced, but they dropped it. That night, after her friends left and the boxes were mostly unpacked, Lena and Adrian collapsed on the couch together. We did it, she said. We did. He pressed a kiss to her temple. How does it feel? Terrifying, exciting, right? Yeah. He was quiet for a moment. I need to tell you something. Her stomach dropped. What? I have a meeting next week. With federal agents. Lena sat up. What? Why? They want to interview me. Officially. About Victor and the investigation. He held up a hand before she could panic. It's routine. My lawyer says it's just tying up loose ends, but I wanted you to know. Are you in trouble? No. Victor kept his word. The information I gave them led to 3 arrests. They're happy. This is just cleanup. And if it's not, then my lawyer handles it. He pulled her back against him, but it will be fine, I promise. She wanted to believe him, and mostly, she did. The meeting happened on a Thursday. Adrian left early, dressed in a suit that made him look like a different person, polished, professional, safe. He kissed her goodbye at the door, promised to text updates, and disappeared into the elevator. Lena tried to work from home but couldn't focus. Every hour that passed without word made her anxiety spike higher. Finally, at 2 in the afternoon, her phone buzzed. Adrian, done. Clean. No issues.
Lena, really? Adrian, really? They thanked me for cooperating and sent me on my way. It's over. Lena, come home. Adrian, already on my way. When he walked through the door 20 minutes later, Lena was waiting. She threw her arms around him before he could even set down his briefcase. It's really over? She asked against his chest. It's really over. He held her tight. No more investigations. No more looking over my shoulder. Just us. Just us, she repeated, and for the first time in weeks she felt like she could breathe. Life settled into something resembling normal. Adrian's security firm launched quietly, taking on corporate clients who needed threat assessments and executive protection. It was legitimate work, the kind that didn't involve warehouse meetings or blood on his knuckles. He had an office downtown, business cards, quarterly taxes. Lena watched him transform. The tension that had always lived in his shoulders started to ease. He slept better, smiled more, started talking about the future like it was something they could actually plan. I want to take you somewhere, he said one night over dinner. Where? Prague. I told you it's my favorite city. I want to show you why. When? Next month. We'll take a week. See the castle, walk the bridges, drink too much wine. Lena grinned. That sounds perfect. Yeah? Yeah. Adrian reached across the table, taking her hand. I love you. I love you too. It should have felt routine by now, those words. But every time he said them, it still hit like the first time. They flew to Prague in October. The city was exactly as beautiful as Adrian had promised. Gothic spires and cobblestone streets, the Vltava River cutting through the center like a scar. Adrian played tour guide, dragging her through museums and cafes and hidden corners tourists never saw. How do you know all this? Lena asked as he led her down a narrow alley to a tiny bookstore. I lived here for 6 months when I was 22, before everything got complicated. What were you doing? Running, trying to figure out who I wanted to be. He glanced at her. I didn't figure it out then, but I think I'm starting to now. The bookstore was cramped and dusty, filled with volumes in Czech and German and English. Adrian bought her a collection of poetry, and she bought him a history of the city. They walked back to their hotel as the sun set, painting the buildings gold. That night, lying in bed with the windows open and the sound of the city drifting in, Adrian asked, What do you want? Long term, I mean. Lena turned to face him. What do you mean? Kids, marriage, a house in the suburbs. What does your future look like? I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. Think about it now. She studied his face in the dim light. Why? Because I need to know if what I want aligns with what you want. And what do you want? Adrian was quiet for a moment. I want you, however that looks. If you want kids, we'll have kids. If you want to stay in the city, we'll stay. If you want to get married, he paused. I want that too. Lena's breath caught. Are you proposing? Not yet, but I'm telling you I'm thinking about it. His hand found hers under the covers. I've never thought about forever before. Now I can't stop thinking about it. About building a life that's ours. About waking up next to you when we're 70 and still feeling lucky. Tears pricked her eyes. I want that too. Yeah? Yeah. All of it. The messy, complicated, real version of forever. Adrian kissed her then, soft and sure, and Lena felt something lock into place. This wasn't just love. It was certainty, the kind that didn't waver. They flew home a week later carrying souvenirs and inside jokes and a shared understanding that what they had wasn't temporary. It was the beginning of something permanent. But permanence required foundations. Back in the city, Adrian's business continued to grow. He hired a small team, rented proper office space, started turning down jobs that felt too close to his old life. Lena got a promotion at work, taking on bigger clients and longer hours. They fell into rhythms, morning coffee together, late dinners, weekends spent exploring the city or staying in. It was normal. Beautifully, wonderfully normal. Until the night Adrian came home with a ring. Lena was in the kitchen, attempting to cook something that wasn't pasta, when she heard the door open. Hey, she called.
Dinner's almost ready. Well, almost is generous. It'll be ready eventually. No response. She turned, and there he was, standing in the doorway with an expression she couldn't read. Adrian, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. He crossed to her, hands shaking slightly as he reached into his pocket. I was going to wait. Plan something elaborate, but I can't. He pulled out a small velvet box. Lena's heart stopped. I know we said we weren't in a rush, Adrian said, opening the box to reveal a simple gold band with a single diamond. But I also know that I don't want to spend another day without knowing you're mine. Completely. Permanently. Adrian, let me finish. He took her hand. You walked into my life when I was hollow. You didn't try to fix me or change me. You just saw me and decided I was worth staying for. And every day since then, you've made me want to be better. Not for you, because of you. So I'm asking... He dropped to one knee, and Lena's vision blurred with tears. Lena Carter, will you marry me? She couldn't speak, could barely breathe. All she could do was nod, frantic and graceless, while tears streamed down her face. Yes, she finally choked out. Yes, of course, yes. Adrian slid the ring onto her finger, and then he was standing, pulling her into his arms, and they were both laughing and crying and kissing all at once. I love you, he said against her mouth. I love you too. They stood there in the kitchen, holding each other while dinner burned on the stove, and Lena thought about that night in the bar, about the dare that changed everything, about the man who'd studied her with unsettling calm and decided she was worth the risk. She'd been terrified then. She still was, sometimes. But now she was also sure. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. The engagement should have been the beginning of easy. That's what Lena kept telling herself in the weeks that followed. They'd weathered the storm, come out the other side, and now they got to plan a future without looking over their shoulders. Except Adrian was still looking. It started small. He'd pause mid-conversation, eyes tracking something across a restaurant she couldn't see. He'd check his phone more often, frown at messages he wouldn't explain. Once, she woke at 3 a.m. to find him standing at the window, staring at the street below like he was waiting for something to appear. What's wrong? She'd asked, groggy and confused. Nothing. Go back to sleep. But it wasn't nothing. She could feel it in the tension that had crept back into his shoulders, the way his jaw tightened when his phone rang with numbers he didn't recognize. 2 weeks after the proposal, Lena came home to find him pacing the living room, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in rapid Russian. He looked up when she entered, held up a finger asking for a minute, then turned away and lowered his voice. She dropped her bag on the counter harder than necessary. When he finally hung up, she was waiting with her arms crossed. Who was that? No one important. Adrian. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's handled. What's handled? What aren't you telling me? It's just business. Someone from the old days trying to pull me back in. I told them no. And they accepted that? They will. That's not an answer. Lena stepped closer. You said it was over. You promised me the past was done. It is done. This is just cleanup. He reached for her, but she pulled back. Don't touch me and tell me everything's fine when I can see it's not. You've been different for weeks, distracted, paranoid. Something's going on, and I deserve to know what. Adrian's expression hardened. What you deserve is to not worry about problems I'm handling. That's not how this works. We're engaged, Adrian. We're supposed to be partners. That means you don't get to shut me out every time something gets complicated. I'm not shutting you out. I'm protecting you. I don't need protection. I need honesty. The words hung between them, sharp and bitter. Adrian stared at her for a long moment, something shifting behind his eyes. Then he walked to the window, hands braced against the frame, shoulders rigid. Dmitry Sokolov, he said quietly. Lena's stomach dropped. Who? Someone I did business with 4 years ago. Before Victor, before I started being careful about clients. He ran a smuggling operation, art, antiquities, things that weren't mine to ask questions about. I moved money for him, made introductions. Then I got smart and cut ties. And now he's back? He needs something. A favor, he calls it. Access to a shipping manifest I helped him set up years ago. He says it's simple, low risk, nothing that will blow back on me. But you don't believe him? No. Adrian turned to face her. Dmitry doesn't do simple. If he's calling in a favor, it's because he's desperate. And desperate men make mistakes that get everyone around them burned. So tell him no. I did. 3 times now, but he's not accepting it. What does that mean? Adrian's jaw tightened. It means he's starting to make threats. Fear spiked through her. What kind of threats? The vague kind. Mentions you in passing. Talks about how nice our apartment is, how busy your office must be. Nothing direct enough to act on, but clear enough to understand. Lena's hands shook. He's threatening me to get to you. He's trying to, but it won't work. Adrian crossed to her, gripping her shoulders. I won't let anything happen to you. I promise you that. How can you promise that when you can't even make him leave you alone? Because I know people who can make him leave me alone. Permanently. The way he said it sent ice down her spine. What does permanently mean? It means I have options. None of them pleasant, but all of them effective. Adrian, no, you can't. You said you were done with that world. I am done. But that doesn't mean I won't use what I know to protect what matters. His eyes held hers. You matter more than any promise I made to myself about staying clean. That's not what I want. Then what do you want? I want us to go to the police. Let them handle it. Adrian laughed, sharp and humorless. The police can't touch Dimitri. He's too connected, too smart. By the time they build a case, we'll both be dead or disappeared. So what's your plan? Call in favors from other criminals? Start a war? If that's what it takes. No. Lena pulled away from him. No, I won't let you throw away everything you've built because some asshole from your past can't take no for an answer. What choice do I have? There's always a choice, not when it comes to you. His voice broke on the words. Don't you understand? I would burn down everything I've built, every bridge I've crossed, every promise I've made, all of it, if it meant keeping you safe. That's not negotiable. Lena's eyes burned. And what happens to us if you do that? If you go back to being the person you were trying to leave behind? We survive. That's what matters. No. What matters is the life we're trying to build, the future we're supposed to have. She stepped closer, taking his face in her hands. You can't protect that future by destroying it in the present. Adrian closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. Then tell me what to do, because I'm out of ideas that don't end with someone getting hurt. We figure it out together, like we always do. Together, he repeated, the word barely a whisper. They stood like that for a while, holding on to each other in the middle of their apartment, while the city hummed outside, and the weight of Adrian's past pressed down on them both. The next day, Adrian called a meeting, not with criminals or old contacts, but with a lawyer. A real one. The kind who wore expensive suits and had an office in a building with actual security. Lena insisted on coming. Tell me everything, the lawyer, Marcus Chen, said once they were seated in his conference room. Start from the beginning and don't leave anything out. Adrian did. He laid out his history with Dimitri, the nature of their business, the threats that had been made. He was clinical about it, detached, like he was describing someone else's life. Marcus listened without interrupting, taking notes on a legal pad. When Adrian finished, he set down his pen. This is messy, Marcus said, but it's not impossible. What are our options? Lena asked. Limited. Dimitri hasn't made any direct threats, which means law enforcement won't touch it. We could try for a restraining order, but without evidence of imminent danger, it won't hold. So we do nothing? Adrian's voice was flat. No. We make him understand that continuing to contact you will cost him more than it's worth. Marcus leaned forward. I have connections. People who specialize in making problems go away quietly. Not through violence, through leverage. We find out what Dimitri cares about, what he's vulnerable to, and we use it. That's extortion, Lena said. That's negotiation, Marcus smiled thinly. He wants something from you. We make it clear that the price of pursuing it is higher than he's willing to pay. Adrian was quiet for a moment. What do you need from me? Everything you know about his operation. Names, locations, financial structures, anything that gives us ammunition. I can do that. Good. Give me a week. I'll reach out to some people, see what we can dig up. In the meantime, vary your routines. Don't go anywhere alone. And if Dimitri contacts you again, record it. They left the office with a plan that felt fragile at best. But it was something, a way forward that didn't involve Adrian sliding back into the darkness he'd fought so hard to escape. That night, They ordered takeout and ate on the couch, too exhausted to do anything else. Do you think it'll work? Lena asked, picking at her noodles. I don't know. Marcus is good at what he does, but Dimitri is unpredictable. And if it doesn't work? Adrian set down his food, turning to face her. Then we leave. Pack up, disappear, start over somewhere he can't find us. You'd really do that? Without hesitation, his hand found hers. My business, this apartment, the life I've built here, none of it matters if I lose you. We can rebuild anywhere. I don't want to run. Neither do I. But I want you alive more than I want to stay. Lena squeezed his hand. We're not there yet. Let's see what Marcus finds. Okay. They finished dinner in silence, both pretending the fear wasn't sitting heavy between them. Marcus called 4 days later. I found something, he said when Adrian answered. Can you come to my office? They were there in 20 minutes. Marcus had papers spread across his conference table, bank statements, shipping records, photographs. He gestured for them to sit. Dimitri's been running a side operation, Marcus explained, smuggling rare manuscripts out of Eastern Europe, very illegal, very profitable. He's been using a front company in Prague to move them. How does that help us? Lena asked. Because one of those manuscripts belongs to the Czech government. It was stolen from a museum 3 years ago. If that information reaches the right people, Dimitri's entire operation collapses. He'll be too busy dealing with international warrants to worry about Adrian. Adrian leaned forward, studying the documents. Where did you get this? A source who used to work for him. She left 6 months ago and has been looking for a way to burn him ever since. I convinced her this was it. And you trust her? As much as I trust anyone in this business. Marcus met his eyes. This is solid, Adrian. We leak this to Interpol, they'll be on him within days. He won't have time to retaliate before he's running for his life. What if he figures out it came from us? He won't. The source has her own grudge. It'll look like her revenge, not yours. Lena looked at Adrian. What do you think? He was quiet for a long moment, jaw working. I think it's dangerous. If Dimitri even suspects I'm involved, he'll come after us before Interpol can touch him. But if we don't do this, he'll never stop, Lena said softly. I know. Marcus waited, patient. Finally, Adrian nodded. Do it. Leak the information, but we need protection until this plays out. Can you arrange that? Already done. I have a security team on standby. They'll watch your apartment, follow you both to and from work. If Dimitri makes a move, they'll intercept. How much is this going to cost? Lena asked. More than you want to pay. Less than your lives are worth. Marcus started gathering the papers. I'll make the call tonight. By tomorrow, this will be in motion. Stay sharp, stay together, and trust the process. They left the office with a knot of anxiety in both their stomachs. The security team showed up that evening. 2 men, ex-military by the look of them, professional and quiet. They did a sweep of the apartment, installed additional locks, and positioned themselves in a car outside the building. This is insane, Lena muttered, watching from the window. This is temporary, Adrian said. Once Dimitri's dealing with Interpol, we can go back to normal. What if normal never comes back? He didn't have an answer for that. The next 48 hours crawled by. Lena tried to work but couldn't focus. Adrian paced the apartment like a caged animal, checking his phone every 5 minutes, jumping at sounds that didn't exist. On the second night, Marcus called. It's done, he said. Interpol received the information this morning. They've already issued a warrant. Dimitri's currently in Budapest and the Hungarian authorities are moving to arrest him. Adrian's shoulders sagged with relief. Are you sure? Positive. I have a contact at Interpol who confirmed it. He's done, Adrian. He won't be bothering you again. What if he gets out? He won't. The evidence is airtight, and he's facing charges in multiple countries. Even if he makes bail somewhere, he'll be too busy running to think about you. Adrian closed his eyes. Thank you. Just doing my job. I'll keep the security detail for another week, just to be safe. After that, you should be clear. When he hung up, Lena was watching him from the couch. It's over? She asked. It's over. She stood, crossing to him, and wrapped her arms around his waist. He held her tight, face buried in her hair. I was so scared, she whispered. Me too. But we made it. Yeah, we did. They stood there for a while just breathing, letting the relief wash over them in waves. The week passed without incident. No threatening calls, no shadows following them, no knots of anxiety sitting heavy in their chests. By the time Marcus called to say the security team was being pulled, Lena had almost forgotten what it felt like to be constantly afraid. Almost. "We should celebrate," she said that night. Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Celebrate what?" "Surviving. Again." She grinned. "Also, we're engaged and haven't actually talked about the wedding yet." "You want to talk about the wedding?" "I want to plan a life that doesn't involve lawyers and security teams and men from your past trying to drag you back." Adrian smiled, real and unguarded. "Okay, let's do it." They ordered pizza and opened a bottle of wine, spreading out on the living room floor with a notebook and too many ideas. "Small," Lena said. "I don't want a huge production. Just us and the people we actually care about." "How small?" 30 people, maybe? Sarah and Becca, obviously. Your team from work? A few others? Where? Lena thought for a moment. Somewhere that means something to us. Not a church or a hotel ballroom. Somewhere real. Prague, Adrian said suddenly. What? You loved Prague. I love showing it to you. What if we got married there? Small ceremony, just close friends, then a week exploring the city together. Lena's chest tightened. That's perfect. Yeah? Yeah. He pulled her against him, kissing the top of her head. When? 6 months? That gives us time to plan, but not so much time that we overthink it. 6 months, Adrian agreed. They spent the rest of the night talking about details, venues and flowers and what kind of food to serve. It was mundane and beautiful, the kind of conversation that felt like building something real. When they finally crawled into bed, exhausted and happy, Lena felt something settle in her chest. The fear was still there, would probably always be there in some form, but it was smaller now, manageable. I love you, she said into the darkness. I love you too. And for the first time in weeks, she believed things might actually be okay. The next few months were a blur of wedding planning and work, and the small joys of ordinary life. Adrian's business continued to grow, taking on bigger clients, hiring more staff. Lena got promoted again, this time to a role that came with a corner office and actual decision-making power. They fought sometimes, about money, about where to spend holidays, about whether to get a dog. Normal couple things that felt weirdly precious after everything they'd been through. Sarah and Becca threw her a bachelorette party that involved too much tequila and a karaoke bar where Lena sang off-key renditions of songs she didn't know the words to. Adrian had a bachelor party that was quieter, just drinks with his team and a poker game that went until 3 in the morning. Are you nervous? Sarah asked the night before they flew to Prague. Terrified, Lena admitted. Why? You love him. I do, but marriage is so permanent. What if we mess it up? Then you fix it. That's what people do. Sarah squeezed her hand. You and Adrian have survived worse than a bad argument about dishes. You'll be fine. You think? I know. Lena wanted to believe her. They flew to Prague on a Tuesday, arriving in the late afternoon to golden light and the smell of river water. Adrian had arranged everything. The hotel, the venue, the photographer. All Lena had to do was show up. The ceremony was scheduled for Friday. On Thursday night, unable to sleep, Lena found Adrian on the balcony of their hotel room, staring out at the city. You okay? She asked, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. Just thinking. About? How different my life would be if you hadn't walked up to me in that bar. She leaned against the railing beside him. Better or worse? Better in every way that matters. He turned to look at her. I was hollow before you, just going through motions, building things that didn't mean anything, and then you showed up and reminded me what it felt like to actually want something. I didn't do anything special. You saw me. Really saw me. Not the reputation or the money or the danger, just me. His hand found hers. That's everything, Lena. Her throat tightened. I'm scared I won't be enough. That one day you'll wake up and realize you gave up your whole life for someone ordinary. Stop calling yourself ordinary. His voice was firm. You're the bravest person I know. You walked into my chaos and didn't flinch. You demanded honesty when I tried to hide. You made me want to be better, not because you asked, but because you deserved it. Adrian, I'm not finished. He pulled her closer. Tomorrow, I'm going to stand in front of everyone we care about and promise to love you for the rest of my life. And I need you to know, that's not a sacrifice, that's a gift. You're a gift. Lena's vision blurred. I love you so much it scares me sometimes. Good. Me too. They stood there on the balcony, wrapped around each other, while the city lights flickered below and the future stretched out ahead of them, uncertain but theirs. The wedding was small and perfect. They got married in a garden overlooking the Vltava, with 30 people watching and the sun setting behind them. Lena wore a simple white dress. Adrian wore a suit that made him look almost relaxed. When it came time for vows, Adrian went first. Lena, he said, voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. You walked into my life when I'd forgotten what it meant to hope. You didn't try to fix me or change me. You just stood beside me and demanded I be honest. And in doing that, you gave me something I'd never had before, a reason to be better. I promise to love you through every hard thing, to choose you every day, even when it's difficult, to build a life with you that's worth all the risk we took to get here. Lena's hands shook as she took her turn. Adrian, you terrified me at first. You still do sometimes. But you also made me feel more alive than I'd felt in years. You saw something in me I didn't know I had. Courage, strength, the ability to choose something risky because it was real. I promise to stand beside you through whatever comes, to trust you even when I'm scared, to build a future with you that's ours, messy and complicated and absolutely worth it. The officiant pronounced them married, and when Adrian kissed her, the small crowd erupted in applause. Lena felt tears on her face but couldn't stop smiling. They were married, actually married. The reception was in a restaurant nearby, intimate and warm. People gave speeches. Sarah cried. Adrian's business partner told an embarrassing story about a botched security job. Becca made everyone laugh with a retelling of the dare that started everything. When it was just the two of them on the dance floor, swaying to music Lena couldn't name, Adrian whispered, "No regrets? Not even one." "Good." He kissed her forehead. "Neither do I." They spent the next week exploring Prague like tourists, holding hands through museums and cafes, laughing at inside jokes, building memories that would carry them through whatever came next. On their last night, sitting by the river with wine and cheese and the lights reflecting off the water, Lena asked, "What happens when we go home?" "We keep building," Adrian said simply. "We wake up every day and choose each other. We fight and make up and probably drive each other crazy sometimes. We figure it out as we go." "That simple?" "That simple." Lena leaned her head on his shoulder. "I can do that." "Me too." And as they sat there, watching the city breathe around them, Lena realized something. She'd spent so long being afraid. Of risk, of change, of choosing something that wasn't safe. But fear hadn't protected her. It had just kept her small. Adrian had taught her that the things worth having were never safe. They were messy and complicated and required you to be brave. And she was brave. Not because she wasn't scared, but because she chose to move forward anyway. They flew home 2 days later, back to their apartment and their jobs and the life they were building together. It wasn't perfect. There were still hard days, still moments when the past threatened to creep back in, but they faced it together, and that made all the difference. Marriage, Lena discovered, was nothing like she'd imagined. The first 3 months were good, better than good. They fell into rhythms that felt lived in and comfortable. Adrian making coffee while she showered, Lena reading on the couch while he worked late, weekend mornings spent in bed talking about nothing important. It was domestic and ordinary and exactly what she'd wanted. Then reality started seeping back in. It started with small things. Adrian would get a call and step into another room, voice low and tense. He'd come back tight-jawed and distracted, claiming it was just business. Lena wanted to believe him, tried to believe him, but the pattern was too familiar. "You're doing it again," she said one night after he'd spent 20 minutes on the phone speaking Russian. "Doing what?" "Shutting me out." Adrian set down his glass. "I'm not shutting you out. I'm handling business." "What kind of business requires you to speak in code at 10 at night?" "The legal kind. We have clients overseas, Lena. Sometimes that means late calls." "Don't lie to me." His expression hardened. "I'm not lying." "Then what was that call about?" "A client in Moscow who's having issues with local security. He needs advice on protective measures. That's it." And you couldn't tell me that? I just did. Lena stood, frustration bubbling over. No, you told me after I pushed. That's different than being honest from the start. What do you want from me? A play-by-play of every conversation I have. I want you to remember that we're supposed to be partners. That means not treating me like I'm fragile every time something from your old world touches your new one. Adrian was quiet for a moment, jaw working. Then he stood and crossed to her. You're right, he said quietly. I'm sorry. Old habits. We've been married 4 months. These shouldn't still be old habits. I know. He pulled her against him. I'm trying. I promise I'm trying. Lena wanted to stay angry, but the exhaustion in his voice broke through her defenses. She wrapped her arms around him, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne. Just talk to me, she said. Even when it's complicated, especially when it's complicated. Okay. They stood there in the kitchen, holding each other while the dishwasher hummed and the city lights flickered through the windows. It should have felt resolved. Instead, it felt temporary. 2 weeks later, Adrian came home with a split lip and bruised knuckles. Lena was in the bedroom, folding laundry, when she heard the door. She called out a greeting, but got no response. When she went to investigate, she found him in the bathroom, running water over his hand. What happened? Nothing? Just a misunderstanding. She grabbed his wrist, turning his hand to examine the damage. A misunderstanding that left you bleeding? It looks worse than it is. Adrian, what the hell happened? He pulled away, reaching for a towel. One of our clients got aggressive during a meeting. I handled it. By hitting him? By defending myself when he took a swing at me. Lena's stomach twisted. Why would a client attack you? Because he's an entitled asshole who didn't like being told his security plan was inadequate. Adrian dried his hands, wincing. It's fine, he won't be a client anymore. That's not fine. That's assault. It's business. No, legitimate business doesn't involve fistfights in conference rooms. Adrian's expression shifted, something cold sliding across his features. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm asking straight out. Is this actually legal work, or are you sliding back into things you promised you left behind? I promised I'd get out of the criminal side. I did. What I'm doing now is completely above board. Then why does it keep resulting in you coming home hurt? Because the world is messy, Lena. Because people are unpredictable. That doesn't mean I'm breaking the law. She stared at him, searching his face for the truth. He met her gaze steadily, no flinch, no tell. I want to believe you, she said finally. Then believe me. But the doubt had already taken root. The next few weeks were tense. Adrian threw himself into work, leaving early and coming home late. Lena tried to focus on her own job, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The man she'd married was slipping away, replaced by the controlled, guarded version of him she'd first met in that bar. She tried talking to Sarah about it, but every conversation felt like an admission that maybe everyone had been right to worry. He's probably just stressed, Sarah offered over coffee one Saturday. New business, lots of pressure. Give him time to adjust. It's been almost a year since he started the company. How much more time does he need? I don't know, Lena, but jumping to conclusions won't help. I'm not jumping. I'm observing. There's a difference. Sarah sighed. What do you want me to say? That you should leave him? Demand answers? I don't know what the right move is here. Me neither. Then maybe just wait. See what happens. If it gets worse, you deal with it then. Lena wanted to argue, but she didn't have a better plan. That night, she came home to find Adrian in the living room with 3 men she didn't recognize. They all went silent when she walked in, eyes tracking her movement with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Lena? Adrian stood quickly. I wasn't expecting you back this early. Clearly. She looked at the men, then back at Adrian. Who are your friends? Business associates. We were just finishing up. One of the men, tall, scarred, built like he could break someone in half, smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. So this is the famous wife. Adrian talks about you constantly. Does he? Lena's voice was flat. All good things, I promise. The man stood, extending a hand. Alexei Petrov, pleasure to meet you. She didn't take it. What kind of business are you in, Alexei? Import-export. Very boring, very legitimate. Right. She turned to Adrian. Can I talk to you? Privately? Adrian excused himself, following her into the bedroom. The moment the door closed, Lena rounded on him. Who the hell are those people? I told you, business associates. That man looks like he murders people for a living. He runs a shipping company. Adrian, I'm not an idiot. Whatever's happening out there, it's not legitimate business. His jaw tightened. You're jumping to conclusions. Am I? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're meeting with the exact kind of people you swore you left behind. They're potential clients, that's all. For what? What service are you providing that requires men who look like they've killed before? Security consulting, like I've been doing for months. Nothing illegal. Then why are you meeting them here instead of your office? Adrian's expression shifted, frustration bleeding through the control. Because some clients prefer discretion. That doesn't make them criminals. But it doesn't make them legal either. Lena, no, don't Lena me. You promised. You looked me in the eye and promised you were done with that world. And I am done. These men are legitimate businessmen who need protection services. That's it. I don't believe you. The words hung between them, sharp and painful. Adrian stared at her, something cracking in his expression. Then what do you want me to say? That I'm lying? That I've been playing you this whole time? I want you to tell me the truth. I am telling you the truth. You're just choosing not to hear it. Lena's hands shook. Get them out of our apartment. What? Those men. I want them gone. Now. Lena, I can't just… Yes, you can. Either they leave or I do. Adrian's eyes widened. You're giving me an ultimatum? I'm setting a boundary. Our home is supposed to be safe. I don't feel safe with those men here. For a long moment, Adrian just stared at her. Then he nodded once, sharp and final, and walked out of the bedroom. She heard low voices, movement, the door opening and closing. When Adrian came back, his face was unreadable. They're gone. Thank you. Are we done fighting now? I don't know. Are you done lying? I'm not lying, Lena, but I'm also done defending myself to you every time someone who doesn't fit your idea of respectable walks through our door. That's not fair. Neither is being accused of being a criminal in my own home. He grabbed his jacket and keys. Where are you going? Lena asked. Out. I need air. Adrian. But he was already gone, the door closing with a finality that made her chest ache. Lena sank onto the bed, hands pressed to her face. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. They'd survived everything. Victor, Dmitri, all the chaos of his past. They'd gotten married, built a life, promised to face things together. But together only worked when both people were honest. And she was starting to suspect Adrian wasn't being honest at all. He didn't come home that night. Lena barely slept, checking her phone every 20 minutes for a text that never came. By morning, exhaustion and worry had crystallized into something harder. Anger, maybe. Or resignation. When Adrian finally walked through the door at 7 a.m., she was already dressed and ready for work. Where were you? She asked. Hotel. You stayed at a hotel instead of coming home. I needed space. You made it pretty clear you didn't want me here. That's not what I said. It's what you meant. He set down his keys, looking as exhausted as she felt. We can't keep doing this, Lena. Her heart stuttered. Doing what? Fighting every time something in my life doesn't fit your narrative. I left the criminal world. I built a legitimate business, but I can't control who my clients know or what they look like. If you can't trust me, I want to trust you, but you keep giving me reasons not to. Like what? Name one thing I've actually done wrong. You brought dangerous men into our home without telling me. They're not dangerous, they're businessmen. Who look like they break kneecaps for fun. Adrian laughed, sharp and bitter. So now we're judging people by appearance? That's rich, coming from someone who kissed a stranger in a bar because he looked intimidating. That's not the same thing, isn't it? You took a risk on me when I was exactly the kind of person you're now accusing those men of being. But that was romantic then. Now it's just inconvenient. Lena's throat tightened. I took a risk because I thought you wanted to change. I thought you wanted out. I did. I do. He stepped closer. But getting out doesn't mean everyone from that world disappears. It means navigating carefully so I don't get pulled back in. And that requires me to maintain relationships with people you might not approve of. As long as it's legal.
It is legal. Then prove it. Adrian's expression went cold.
How? Show me your books, your client list, everything about your business. If it's all legitimate, you shouldn't have a problem with transparency. That's confidential information. I'm your wife, which doesn't give you the right to audit my company, but it gives me the right to know you're not lying to me. They stared at each other, the space between them feeling wider than it ever had. I'm not showing you my books, Adrian said finally. Not because I'm hiding something, but because if you can't trust me without proof, we have bigger problems than what's in my files. So that's it? Trust you blindly or get out? That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? Adrian ran a hand through his hair, frustration and exhaustion warring on his face. I'm saying that I love you, that I've built a life I'm proud of because of you. But I can't spend every day defending myself against accusations based on how people look or when I take phone calls. At some point, you either believe I'm who I say I am, or you don't. Lena's eyes burned. And if I don't know yet, then we have a problem. The silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. I need to get to work, Lena said finally, grabbing her bag. Lena, I can't do this right now. I can't. She left before he could respond, taking the stairs instead of waiting for the elevator because she needed the movement, needed something to burn off the panic rising in her chest. This wasn't how marriage was supposed to feel. They were supposed to be solid, unshakable. Instead, she felt like they were standing on opposite sides of a chasm that was widening every day, and she had no idea how to bridge it. Work was a blur. Lena went through the motions, meetings, emails, a presentation she barely remembered giving. Her boss praised her, but the words slid off without landing. At lunch, she found herself calling Marcus Chen.
Lena, he answered on the second ring, is everything okay? I need to ask you something, off the record. A pause. Okay. Adrian's business, is it really legitimate? Another pause, longer this time. What brought this on? Just answer the question, please. As far as I know, yes. He's running a security consulting firm that provides threat assessments and protective services to corporate clients, all above board. But
he still maintains relationships with people from his old life. That's unavoidable in his line of work. Some of those people exist in gray areas. How gray? Gray enough that I'd advise him to be careful, but not gray enough to be illegal. Marcus's voice softened. Is he in trouble? I don't know, maybe. He had some men at the apartment last night who looked wrong. Wrong how? Dangerous. The kind of dangerous that doesn't come from legitimate business. Did you get names? 1. Alexei Petrov. Silence. Marcus? I know that name. He runs shipping operations out of Eastern Europe, technically legal, but there are rumors of smuggling on the side. Nothing proven. Lena's stomach dropped. And Adrian's doing business with him? Possibly, or possibly just meeting with him. There's a difference. Not much of one. Lena, listen to me. Adrian is walking a tightrope. He's trying to build something clean while still maintaining enough connections to protect himself if his past comes back. That means occasionally dealing with people who aren't choir boys. But as long as he's not participating in illegal activity, he's in the clear. How do I know he's not participating? You trust him, or you don't. There was that word again, trust. Thanks, Marcus. Anytime. And Lena, be careful. The suspicion you're feeling, it can poison things faster than actual betrayal. She hung up, feeling worse than before. That night, Adrian was home when she arrived. He'd made dinner, pasta, salad, wine, an olive branch. Can we talk? He asked. Lena set down her bag. Yeah. They sat at the table, the food between them feeling more like a barrier than a gesture. I'm sorry, Adrian said, for last night, for walking out, for not being better at this. Better at what? At being a husband, at understanding why my past scares you. He took a breath. You asked for transparency. I'm going to give it to you. Lena's heart picked up. Okay. Alexei Petrov contacted me 3 weeks ago. He wants security for a shipment coming through the port. Art, he says. Legitimate purchases from Eastern European auctions. He needs someone to ensure it arrives without incident. And you believe him? No. Which is why I've been stalling. But he's persistent, and he has connections that could be useful if I ever need them. So you're considering it. I'm considering the cost of saying no versus the risk of saying yes. That's not the same as being legitimate. I know. Adrian leaned forward, which is why I'm going to turn him down. Officially. Tonight. Really? Really? You were right. I can't build something clean by holding on to relationships that pull me backward. So I'm cutting ties, completely. Lena searched his face, looking for the lie. But all she saw was exhaustion and sincerity. What if he doesn't accept no? Then I'll handle it, legally, through Marcus if I have to. You promise? I promise. She wanted to believe him, needed to believe him. Okay, she said quietly. Adrian reached across the table, taking her hand. I love you. More than this business, more than any connection I've held on to. You're what matters. I need you to know that. I do know that. I get scared sometimes that you'll slip back into who you were before me. I won't, because who I was before you was hollow, and I never want to be that person again. They ate dinner in cautious peace, both of them pretending the cracks weren't still there. Adrian called Alexei that night. Lena heard him in the other room, voice firm but polite, declining the job and suggesting alternative contacts. When he came back, he looked lighter. Done? She asked. Done. How did he take it? About as well as expected. Angry, but he'll get over it. And if he doesn't? Then we deal with it when it happens. Adrian sat beside her on the couch. But I don't think he will. Alexei's smart enough to know pushing would cost him more than it's worth. Lena leaned against him, letting the tension drain from her shoulders. Maybe this was it. The moment where things finally leveled out. The call came 3 days later. Adrian was at work, Lena was in a meeting, when her phone lit up with an unknown number. She ignored it. It called again. Then again. On the fourth call, she excused herself and answered. Hello? Lena Volkov? A man's voice, accented, unfamiliar. Who is this? A friend of your husband's. We need to talk. Her blood went cold. I don't know who you are, but Alexei Petrov. And before you hang up, you should know that Adrian made a mistake turning down my offer. A mistake that will have consequences if we don't come to an understanding. Are you threatening me? I'm offering you information your husband is too proud to share. Meet me. 1 hour. The coffee shop on 5th and Main. Come alone. I'm not meeting you anywhere. Then Adrian pays the price for disappointing me. Your choice. He hung up. Lena stared at her phone, heart hammering. This was insane. She should call Adrian, call the police, anything except what she was actually considering. But if Alexei had information, if Adrian was keeping something from her, she needed to know. 50 minutes later, she walked into the coffee shop. Alexei was already there, sitting in the back corner with a cup he wasn't drinking. He stood when she approached. Mrs. Volkov, thank you for coming. I didn't come to chat. Say what you need to say. Direct. I like that. He gestured to the chair across from him. Please. Sit. Against her better judgment, she did. Alexei studied her for a moment, then slid a folder across the table. Your husband told you he's out of the business, that he's building something legitimate. He is. Is he? Alexei opened the folder. Inside were bank statements, transaction records, photographs. These are from 2 months ago. That's Adrian meeting with Viktor Sokolov's former partner. That's a wire transfer from a shell company he supposedly dissolved. That's... Stop. Lena's hands shook. Where did you get these? I have my sources. The point is, your husband isn't as clean as he claims. This doesn't prove anything, doesn't it? He tells you he's leaving the past behind while still taking money from it. He promises transparency while meeting with criminals in secret. How long before he drags you down with him? What do you want? I want Adrian to reconsider my offer, and I want you to convince him. Why would I do that?
Bisexuals.
Because if you don't, these documents end up with the federal prosecutors who've been circling his old cases. They'll reopen investigations, freeze assets, destroy everything he's built. Alexei leaned forward. But if he takes my job, completes it successfully, I make all of this disappear. Everyone wins. Lena's chest tightened. You're blackmailing me. I'm offering you a way to protect your husband. What you do with that is your choice. She stood, legs shaking. I need time to think. You have 24 hours. After that, I make other arrangements. Lena grabbed the folder and walked out, barely making it to her car before the panic hit. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be happening. But the documents in her hand said otherwise, and now she had to decide what to do about it. Lena sat in her car for 20 minutes, staring at the folder in her lap. The documents inside felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds. Bank statements with Adrian's name, wire transfers dated weeks after he'd supposedly cut all ties. Photographs of him shaking hands with men whose faces she didn't recognize but whose body language screamed danger. Her phone buzzed. Adrian. Adrian. Where are you? Thought we were meeting for lunch. Her hands shook as she typed back. Lena. Something came up at work. Rain check? Adrian. Everything okay? Lena. Fine, just busy. She hated lying. Hated that it came so easily now, like she'd learned it from him. Instead of going home, she drove to Sarah's apartment. Her friend opened the door in sweatpants and a coffee-stained shirt, took one look at Lena's face, and pulled her inside. What happened? Lena handed her the folder without a word. Sarah flipped through the pages, her expression growing darker with each one. When she finished, she set it down carefully, like it might explode. Where did you get this? Alexei Petrov, the man Adrian said he cut ties with. And you met with him? Lena, are you insane? Probably. Lena pressed her hands to her face. He called me. Said Adrian was lying about being out. That he still has connections to his old world, and if I don't convince him to take Alexei's job, these documents go to federal prosecutors. That's blackmail. I know. So we call the police, or Marcus, someone who can handle this legally, and tell them what? That my husband might be involved in something illegal? That I don't actually know if any of this is real or fabricated? Lena's voice cracked. What if it is real, Sarah? What if Adrian's been lying to me this whole time? Sarah sat beside her, taking her hand. What does your gut say? My gut is a mess. Half of me thinks there's an explanation. The other half thinks I've been an idiot for believing him. Then you need to ask him. Show him these documents and demand the truth. What if the truth is that I married someone who never intended to change? Then you deal with it. But you can't make decisions based on documents from a man who's actively trying to manipulate you. Lena knew Sarah was right, but the fear sitting in her chest made it hard to think straight. She went home that evening with the folder hidden in her bag, rehearsing conversations in her head. But when she walked through the door and saw Adrian in the kitchen making dinner, humming along to music she'd introduced him to, all her prepared speeches dissolved. Hey, he said, smiling. How was your day? Long? She set down her bag, willing her voice to stay steady. Yours? Productive. Landed a new client, completely boring corporate security. Exactly what we need. He kissed her cheek. Wine? Sure. He poured 2 glasses while she stood there, the folder in her bag feeling like it was burning a hole through the leather. Just ask him. Show him the documents. Demand answers. But instead she said, That's great about the client. They ate dinner making small talk about work and weekend plans and whether they should finally get that dog they'd been discussing. Adrian was relaxed, present, exactly the version of himself she'd fallen in love with. And Lena felt like she was watching him from behind glass, trying to figure out if any of it was real. After dinner, he pulled her onto the couch, tucking her against his side. You seem tense, he said, pressing a kiss to her temple. Just tired. Want to talk about it? This was her opening, the moment to lay everything out and force the conversation they needed to have. Instead, she said, No, I'm okay. Adrian's arms tightened around her, and Lena closed her eyes, pretending for just a little longer that everything was fine. She lasted 2 more days before the weight of it broke her. Adrian was in the shower when she finally pulled out the folder and spread the documents across the dining table. Her heart hammered as she studied them again, looking for anything that proved they were fake. But the details were too specific, the transactions too precise. The water shut off. She heard Adrian moving around in the bathroom, and panic surged through her. She should put them away, wait for a better time, think this through more carefully. But she was so tired of waiting, so tired of not knowing. Adrian walked out in sweatpants, toweling his hair dry, and stopped when he saw her. What's all this? Lena met his eyes. You tell me. He crossed to the table, picking up one of the bank statements. His expression didn't change, but something shifted in the set of his shoulders. Where did you get these? Alexei Petrov gave them to me 3 days ago. Adrian's jaw tightened. You met with him? He called me. Threatened to send these to prosecutors if I didn't convince you to take his job. Her voice shook. So I'm asking you straight out, are they real? For a long moment, Adrian didn't answer. He just stood there, holding the document, face unreadable. Then he set it down carefully and said, Some of them are real. Some are fabricated. The room tilted. Which ones? The wire transfers are real. The meetings are real. The context is fabricated. What does that mean?
Adrian pulled out a chair and sat, looking suddenly exhausted. It means Alexei took real transactions and twisted them to look like something they're not. Explain. The wire transfer he's showing, that was me paying off a debt to Victor's old partner, money I owed from before I got out. I told you I was tying up loose ends. That was one of them. And the meetings? With people from my past who needed advice on legitimate security issues. I didn't lie about that, Lena. I told you I still maintain relationships. That doesn't mean I'm working with them illegally. But you didn't tell me about the debt or the wire transfer. Because I knew how it would look. I knew you'd jump to conclusions. Like I'm doing now? Yes. Lena's hands fisted on the table. Then help me understand, because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been lying about being out of that world. I'm not lying, but getting out isn't a clean break, Lena. It's messy. It requires navigating relationships and debts and obligations that don't just disappear because I decided I wanted a different life. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were already scared, already doubting. I didn't want to give you more ammunition to convince yourself I was backsliding. So instead, you just let me find out from a man who's blackmailing us? Adrian's expression cracked, frustration bleeding through. I was protecting you. From what? The truth? From exactly this. From the fear and doubt and the way you're looking at me right now like you don't know if you can trust me. Can I? The question hung between them, raw and devastating. Adrian stood, crossing to the window, hands braced against the frame. I have never lied to you about who I am or what I want. I told you from the beginning that my past was complicated, that it would take time to fully extract myself. You said you understood. You said you could handle it. I thought I could. And now? Lena's eyes burned. Now I don't know. I don't know how to tell the difference between you being honest and you managing me, and I hate that I feel that way. Adrian turned to face her, and the pain in his expression nearly broke her. I love you, he said quietly. More than anything I've ever built, or any life I had before you, and I would burn it all down before I let it hurt you. But I can't keep defending myself against suspicions based on half-truths from people trying to manipulate you. Then what do? We call Marcus, we show him these documents. We let him verify what's real and what's fabricated, and then we deal with Alexei properly, through legal channels. And if some of it is real in the way Alexei claims, then I handle the consequences. But I'm not taking his job, Lena. I'm not going backward. Not for him, not for anyone. Lena searched his face, looking for the lie she was terrified of finding, but all she saw was exhaustion and sincerity, and a man who looked like he was barely holding himself together. Okay, she said finally. Call Marcus. Marcus arrived within the hour, briefcase in hand, an expression grim. He spread the documents across the table and spent 30 minutes examining them in silence, while Lena and Adrian sat on opposite ends of the couch, not touching. Finally, Marcus looked up. Half of these are legitimate. The other half are doctored, real transactions with fabricated context. Whoever put this together knew what they were doing. Can you prove they're fabricated? Adrian asked. Yes, but it'll take time. Subpoenas, forensic accounting, the works. And in the meantime? In the meantime, Alexei has ammunition. Not enough to convict you of anything, but enough to make your life very difficult if he shares this with the right people. Lena's stomach dropped. So he wins. Not necessarily. Marcus leaned back. Alexei's smart, but he's also vulnerable. He wouldn't be pushing this hard if he didn't need you badly. That gives us leverage. What kind of leverage? Adrian asked. We find out what he's really moving in that shipment. Art, he says. But I'm betting it's something else. Something illegal enough that if it gets intercepted, he's facing serious time.
Marcus looked at Adrian. You still have contacts in that world. Use them. Find out what Alexei's smuggling, and we'll have our own ammunition. That's risky. Everything's risky at this point, but sitting back and waiting for him to make his move is riskier. Adrian was quiet for a moment, then nodded. I'll make some calls. Marcus stood, gathering the documents. I'll start working on proving these are fabricated. In the meantime, don't communicate with Alexei directly. Let me handle all contact. After he left, Lena and Adrian sat in silence. I'm sorry, Adrian said finally. For what? For all of it. For not being clear about the loose ends I was tying up. For putting you in a position where you had to question whether I was lying. I'm sorry, too. For not trusting you enough to ask before jumping to conclusions. You had reason to jump. Maybe. But I married you knowing your past was complicated. I shouldn't keep punishing you for it. Adrian reached across the couch, taking her hand. We're going to fix this. I promise. I know. But the doubt was still there. A shadow neither of them could quite shake. Over the next week, Adrian made calls. He was careful, discreet, using contacts Lena didn't know he still had. He'd disappear into his office for hours, voice low and tense, then emerge looking more frustrated than before. Anything? Lena would ask. Not yet. But on the 8th day, he came home with a flash drive. I got it, he said, holding it up. Alexei's shipping manifest. He's moving artifacts, real ones, stolen from a museum in Prague 2 years ago. If those get intercepted, he's looking at international charges. How did you get this? Someone who owed me a favor. Don't ask for details. Lena didn't. They took the flash drive to Marcus, who examined the contents and smiled for the first time since this started. This is good, really good. We can work with this. What's the play? Adrian asked. We give Alexei a choice. He backs off and destroys the fabricated documents, or we send this information to Interpol and watch his operation burn. He'll retaliate. Maybe. But he's smart enough to know that mutually assured destruction benefits no one. And right now, he has more to lose than you do. Marcus made the call that afternoon, laying out the terms in clinical detail. Lena and Adrian listened on speakerphone as Alexei's silence stretched on. Finally, he said, You're making a mistake. No, Marcus replied. You made the mistake when you threatened my client's wife. Now you have a choice. Walk away or burn. What's it going to be? Another long silence, then, Fine, I'll back off, but tell Adrian he's made an enemy. Adrian's had worse enemies. He's still standing. Alexei hung up without another word. Marcus turned off the speaker and leaned back in his chair. That should do it. He'll be too busy managing his own mess to come after you again. And the fabricated documents? Lena asked. I'll make sure they're buried. No prosecutor will touch them once I prove they're doctored. Relief hit Lena so hard she felt dizzy. It's really over? As over as these things get. They left Marcus's office holding hands, and for the first time in weeks, Lena felt like she could breathe. But that night, lying in bed while Adrian slept beside her, the doubts crept back in. They'd survived this crisis, but how many more were waiting? How many times could they navigate his past before it finally pulled them under? The answer, she was starting to realize, depended on a choice only she could make. The next morning, Lena woke up before Adrian and sat on the balcony watching the city wake up. The air was cold, autumn bleeding into winter, and she wrapped herself in a blanket while her coffee went cold in her hands. Adrian found her there 20 minutes later. Couldn't sleep, he asked, sitting beside her. Too much thinking. About? Us. This. What happens next? Adrian was quiet for a moment. You're scared I'll never really be free of that world. It wasn't a question. Yes, Lena admitted. I'm scared of that too. The honesty caught her off guard. Really? Every day. I wake up thinking maybe today's the day someone from my past shows up and drags me back. That no matter how hard I try to build something clean, the old life will find a way to poison it. So what do we do? Adrian took her hand, lacing their fingers together. We keep choosing each other, every day, even when it's hard, even when we're scared. He met her eyes. I can't promise you that my past won't touch us again, but I can promise that I'll fight like hell to keep it from destroying what we have. That enough? Lena thought about the kiss that started everything, about the dare that felt reckless, and the man who'd studied her with unsettling calm.
about every moment since then, the fear, the doubt, the times she'd wanted to run and the times she'd chosen to stay. Love, she'd learned, wasn't about finding someone without baggage. It was about deciding their baggage was worth carrying. "It's enough," she said. Adrian pulled her against him and they sat there watching the sunrise. Two people who'd chosen the complicated, messy version of forever over the safe, easy alternative. And it wasn't perfect. It probably never would be. But it was theirs. The months that followed were different. Not easier exactly, but more honest. Adrian started sharing more about his work, even when it meant admitting he'd taken a meeting with someone questionable or fielded a call from his past. Lena learned to ask questions without accusations, to trust that transparency didn't always mean comfort. They fought sometimes. Real fights. Not the careful dances they'd done before. About money, about boundaries, about whether Adrian was being too cautious or Lena was being too controlling. But they always circled back to the same truth. They'd rather fight and stay than walk away from something worth saving. Marcus became a permanent fixture in their lives, handling the legal cleanup from Alexei and helping Adrian set clearer boundaries around his business. The company grew steadily, taking on clients who were boring in the best possible way. Adrian hired more staff, delegated more responsibility, and slowly transformed from someone who needed to control everything to someone who could trust others to handle it. Lena got promoted again, this time to a position that came with actual influence. She threw herself into work, finding purpose in building campaigns that mattered. And when Adrian asked if she was happy, she could honestly say yes. A year after the Alexei incident, Adrian came home with a different kind of proposition. "I want to sell the company," he said. Lena looked up from her laptop. "What?" "The security firm. I want to sell it." "Why?" "Because I built it to prove I could. And I did. But it's not what I want to do forever." "What do you want to do?" Adrian sat beside her, taking her hand. "I want to teach. Security consulting, risk assessment, the legitimate stuff. There's a university program that's been trying to recruit me for months. I've been putting them off because I thought I needed the business to prove I wasn't who I used to be, but I don't. Not anymore. Because I have you. And a life I'm proud of. And the business is just a business. It doesn't define me." Lena's chest tightened. "You're sure?" "Completely. What do you think?" She thought about the man who'd warned her that staying close to him would complicate her life. The man who'd promised to change and then actually done the work to make it happen. The man who was still choosing her, even when it meant giving up things he'd fought to build. "I think you should do it," she said. Adrian smiled, real and unguarded. "Yeah?" "Yeah." He sold the company 6 months later to a larger firm that kept his staff and maintained his client relationships. The payout was substantial enough that money stopped being a concern. And when Adrian started teaching that fall, Lena watched him transform again, this time into someone who genuinely loved what he did. They moved out of the apartment and into a house with a yard, got the dog they'd been talking about, hosted dinners with Sarah and Becca and people from Adrian's program, built a life that looked nothing like either of them had imagined but somehow fit perfectly. On their 3rd anniversary, Adrian took Lena back to Prague. They walked the same bridges, ate at the same restaurants, retraced the steps of their honeymoon. But this time the weight was different. Lighter, like they'd finally stopped looking over their shoulders. On their last night, sitting by the river with wine and the lights reflecting off the water, Adrian said, "Do you ever regret it?" "Regret what?" "That dare. Kissing me. Everything that came after." Lena thought about the fear, the doubt, the times she'd been certain they wouldn't make it, about the nights she'd questioned whether loving him was worth the cost. "Not even once," she said. "Even when I made it hard?" "Especially then, because the hard parts taught me what I was capable of, what we were capable of." She turned to face him. "You didn't ruin me, Adrian. You woke me up." His eyes were suspiciously bright. "I love you. I love you too." They sat there as the city breathed around them, two people who'd turned a reckless moment into a lifetime. Back home, life continued in its beautifully ordinary way. Adrian taught his classes and complained about grading papers. Lena ran campaigns and occasionally traveled for work. They argued about whose turn it was to walk the dog and whether they needed new furniture and what to have for dinner. Normal things. Safe things.
Things that would have bored Lena to tears before she met Adrian. But now she understood that safe didn't mean boring. It meant building something stable enough to weather the storms. It meant choosing consistency over chaos. It meant waking up every day next to someone who saw you completely and loved you anyway. 5 years after that kiss in the bar, Adrian asked Lena a question while they were doing dishes. "Do you want kids?" She nearly dropped the plate she was drying. "What?" "Kids. We've never really talked about it seriously, but we're not getting younger, and if it's something you want, we should probably start planning." Lena set down the plate carefully. "Do you want kids?" "I want whatever builds the life you need to be happy." That's not an answer. Adrian dried his hands, turning to face her. "Honestly, the idea terrifies me. I had a terrible childhood, and I'm not sure I know how to be a good father. But watching you with our friends' kids, seeing how much you light up, I think I want to try. With you." Lena's throat tightened. "I'm scared too." "Of what?" "That I'll mess it up. That we'll mess it up." "Probably," Adrian smiled, "but we've messed up everything else and figured it out. Why not this too?" She laughed despite the tears in her eyes. "That's a terrible sales pitch." "It's an honest one." And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was all any of them could offer: honesty, effort, and the willingness to try. "Okay," Lena said. "Let's do it." They started trying that night, and 3 months later, Lena stared at a positive pregnancy test in their bathroom while Adrian paced outside the door. "Well?" he called. She opened the door, holding up the test. Adrian's face went through about 17 emotions in 3 seconds before landing on something that looked like terrified joy. "We're having a baby," he said. "We're having a baby." He pulled her into his arms, and they stood there in the bathroom, holding each other while their future rewrote itself again. The pregnancy was rough. Lena threw up for 12 weeks straight, couldn't stand the smell of coffee, and cried at commercials. Adrian handled it with a patience she didn't know he possessed, rubbing her back at 3 a.m. and making grocery runs for bizarre cravings. "I'm a nightmare," she said one night after snapping at him for breathing too loud. "You're growing a human. You're allowed to be a nightmare." "I love you. I love you too, even when you yell at me about breathing." Their daughter was born on a Tuesday in March, screaming and perfect and terrifying. Adrian held her with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face, and Lena watched the last piece of his old self dissolve. This was who he'd become. Not the controlled, dangerous man from the bar, but a father, a husband, someone who'd chosen love over power and built something real from the wreckage of his past. They named her Elena, after Lena's grandmother, and brought her home to a house full of people who loved her. Sarah and Becca brought enough baby supplies to stock a store. Adrian's colleagues sent flowers and offered babysitting. Marcus sent a card that made them both cry. And as Lena sat in the nursery at 2 a.m., nursing her daughter while Adrian slept in the chair beside her, she thought about that dare. About the kiss that changed everything. She'd been so scared that night, scared of the man, scared of the risk, scared of what saying yes might cost her. But fear, she'd learned, was just the price of wanting something real, and the things worth having were always going to scare you a little. Adrian stirred in the chair, blinking awake. "You okay?" he mumbled. "Perfect. Need anything?" "Just you." He smiled, that rare, unguarded smile that still made her heart skip. "You've got me. Always." And she did. Not the fantasy version she'd imagined, not the safe, easy man who came without complications, but the real one. The one who'd fought his way out of darkness because she'd made him believe he was worth saving. The one who chose her every day, even when it was hard. The one who'd turned a reckless kiss into a lifetime of choosing love over fear. Years from now, Lena would tell her daughter about that night in the bar, about the dare that seemed so foolish, and the man who didn't laugh it off. About how the scariest choices sometimes led to the most beautiful lives. But for now, she just held her baby and watched her husband sleep and let herself believe in the simple truth that had carried them this far. Love wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone worth fighting for. And then doing the work, every single day, to build something that lasted. They'd done that, against odds that should have broken them, through crises that should have ended them. They'd built a life. Not in spite of the chaos, but because of it. Because sometimes the best things come from the reckless dares. From the moments when you kiss the stranger who scares you, from choosing to stay when everything tells you to run, and from believing that love, messy, complicated, imperfect love, is always worth the risk.